So, what does this all boil down to? Well, there are a couple of elements that we look at when we talk about marketing. One of the most important ones is communication channels. If you think about why people do things like put out ads in magazines, why people maybe post something in classifieds and so on, they do it because they're trying to connect with their target demographic or target audience. So ultimately, the reason to say start a Twitter account or work in a Twitter account or have a Facebook page and so on is to have a communication channel. And so at Dejobaan, we use these just like everybody else. But we try to do interesting things with them. So here's another example of one of our recent communication channels. This is from a site called IndieSuperstar.com. Who here has heard of IndieSuperstar.com? Oh, excellent. All right, IndieSuperstar.com is a website that we created. We call it our Indie Water Cooler blog, and it's basically a place where indies come together and talk about some behind-the-scenes stuff. And the caveat being, we don't just want people to talk about, here's how I made this low poly count thing this week. We want people to talk about what they think might be interesting to their target audience, the gamer. Sure, so let me shuffle through these slides. This article, this is the cover shot from a piece that we did with the Indie Game the Movie folks. So for those of you who have heard of Indie Game the Movie, it's a movie documentary we made about indie games. We contacted them and said, hey, we've got this site that nobody's heard about, but we'd like to interview you, would you be interested? And they said, yeah, sure. So we interviewed them, we put a piece together, we posted it on the site, a couple people talked about it, we got a bunch of traffic. Here's one we did with, hey, look, Eitan. We did this with Eitan, with Jeff Rosen from Wolfire and Andy Moore. Wolfire, for those, I think a lot of people here have heard of Wolfire, right? So again, we did this piece, Jeff wrote about it, a bunch of people came there, Eitan wrote about it, a bunch of people came to the website, and so did Andy. And so what was the purpose here? We wanted to get all of Eitan's customers to buy our game. So we said, hey,
don't worry, you got them all.
So, but to be perfectly honest, we looked at this and said, we need an article to launch this site with. And we need some interesting content, and hopefully some interesting people who gamers recognize. So we said, Eitan, Andy, and Jeff, there are gamers out there who know these guys. They've got some interesting things to say. We asked them a bunch of questions, we posted it, and then we asked them if they would blog about it. And they did. And in our first week on Indie Superstar, without talking about numbers, it did better than Dejobaan.com for a day. And that's not insignificant. We were really shocked. So, button again. All right, there we go. Here's an article we did about some guy. No one read this one. So then we took a bunch of old articles we have from ModDB and we put them up. This is one that we did with Ichiro. It's a fantastic piece. I wrote it myself. Take a look at it. Here's one that we did with one of our former interns from last summer, and she basically interviewed a bunch of people on the team and wrote an article about prototypes. So all of these things don't just talk about a specific development technology. They sort of span a range of topics that we hope a gamer who cares about indie games, might be interested in hearing about. Because notice what we didn't do was just write another review or preview. There are people who are very good at that. They're the mainstream gaming press, and so we don't want to try to do that. Our objective here is to try to provide a unique new piece of content that will get people excited about indie gaming, so that Dejobaan and all the other indie studios out there can benefit from it. So this leads to the next element of marketing. Why promote when you can X-promote? And it's cross-promote, but X-promote sounded so much more awesome. The idea here is very simple, cross-promotion. When we were ready to announce Indie Superstar, we said, okay, so what are we going to do? We can't put out a press release to say that we have a new website, and that's kind of lame. So we said, okay, we've got this fan club, and we give our fan club free games every so often, and the idea there is to get people excited about Dejobaan Games. But what if we send them a free game and just happen to mention that we have this thing called Indie Superstar? And then what if we tell the press that we just gave out a free game to our fan club, and oh, by the way, we have this new site called Indie Superstar. And essentially, in a couple
couple of days, the traffic went through the roof. So we essentially co-launched Indie Superstar while giving out a fan club preview. And it's a very simple thing, cross promotion. That's all there is to it. We also included, Twitter and Facebook buttons in the game. I think a lot of you are familiar with this sort of thing, which enable people to easily, from the game, talk about the game or talk about other things. For the most part, from within the game, people talked about the game. But once they came to our website to sign up for the game, we told them about Indie Superstar. So, you can get the idea. So cross-promotion is key. Being able to jump between the various things that you're doing to talk about them. So right now, if you're, say, developing a game and that's the most interesting thing you have going on, but you know you're going to be launching a different game in 3 months, the idea is think about that and think about how you can start to lead people in that direction while talking about what's currently interesting to you. So I think I'm just going to leave it at that. So the idea with the fan club, I talked a little bit about the fan club. I think I went backwards, right? But a lot of you, or not all of you, are familiar with the fan club. Show of hands. A lot of people. Okay. Simple idea. We work on prototypes, alphas, a lot of stuff that may or may not see the light of day. And the thought was, can we actually share some of these things with our fans, or people who could be fans, and get their opinion on it, while also building some awareness to Dejobaan. And so it's sort of a, here's a free taste model. If you like it, I'll give you a call next week. You'll buy some for you and your friends. And eventually, you'll be so hooked. And you get the idea. So, why build a fan club? There's a hugely important thing here. Fans are people who care about success. People who buy games on Steam or B2B or even, a storefront are not fans, those are customers. And there's nothing driving those people back in general beyond the next special, the next deal, or so on. And what we want to do with the fan club and Indie Superstar is create a group of people, or not create a group of people, help gather a group of people who care about Dejobaan Games, are excited about Dejobaan Games, and actually excited about indie games. Notice we didn't call the site Dejobaan Superstar. We call it Indie Superstar because we really think that the best way to do this is to promote indie gaming in general, to promote other indie studios. So we're going to use the site and hopefully maybe even the fan club over time to share indie gaming content and get people excited about all of indie games. And think, best way to think about this is to think about indie games as sort of a cooperative. So if you think about the little cooperative farmers that will stand going up against the Walmart, it's the same kind of concept. We're a bunch of little studios, but if we actually share our fans and so on and so forth, we all stand together. So with that, that's all we have. I'm gonna hand this over to Ichiro.
Not too much. Some of our students, WCI people, are doing some really exciting things. If you are interested in the dev side, talk to them. We have Robert. He's portrayed by John Wayne today, so if you want to talk to him, you probably have to email him because he's just going to talk about game development hardware. What happened to our questions slide? Hey. I'm going to open the floor to questions, maybe just like 1 or 5 or 10. Oh, okay, the man in the jaunty red shirt. What do you got?
So,
you got food, that's great.
How do you make a good demo for an indie game?
How do you do a demo for an indie game? That's a great question. I can tell you how not to do a demo for an indie game. We did the Aaaaa demo in September of last year, and it is probably the worst piece of shit that I ever put together. Not that it wasn't competent, it just wasn't remarkable. It was the last thing I did after I was up at 4 a.m. trying to get the build to Valve for the main game. I put together the demo, and my concept was, well, it's the first 9 levels, it should sell, right? No! People played the tutorial and said, this is really boring. They might have played through the remainder of the 9 levels and said, okay, well that's a great game. I have no idea what it's going to be like. Is it just going to be more falling through stuff? They missed things like the meditation. They missed things like, flipping people off for points is a big thing for me. A lot of the character of the full game was completely missing from the demo. Don't do that. Next question.
How come it took you like 8 or 9 years to start to get some traction? Does it take everyone that long?
Right, so Dejobaan really started as a hobby business. I was doing other things at the time. So for example, when I first started Dejobaan, I was working at WPI as a research associate for one of the professors, and I did the bootstrapping method. You don't need to do this, you could probably do it better, especially, again, we'll feed back into why Boston Indies is so important. I didn't have that community back then, so I basically just did everything one step, until finally we got like the wonderful end of the world did well enough for us, for me to buy that Porsche. Next question. No, not you. It's not about you, Aaaaa. It's about Dave.
Dejobaan committed to staying in Massachusetts. If you get another offer, will you go somewhere else?
Is Dejobaan committed to staying in Massachusetts? Am I going to leave you, Joel? Do I look like I'm ready to leave you? Hell no. No. Okay, I'm going to say a couple of things about Kurt Schilling. I saw him, no, they're good things. The dude, first of all, if you take a normal person and you scale him up by 120%, that's like Kurt Schilling right there. And he can talk about game development. I was really impressed because I can't play baseball. Rhode Island is not going to offer us $75 million or whatever it is. This is my home. We have one of the best game development communities in the entire fucking universe here. Why would I leave? Next question.
If the game manager was bad, you say that.
Yeah, I would. You guys wouldn't be, if the game development community were bad, we wouldn't be here. Do we have one more? Anybody? Aaaaa?
Can I be riding your Porsche?
Yes, you can ride on. What? You want another question?
What is the story of Aaaaa?
What story? What story of Aaaaa? The name?
I don't know if I totally know the story about all
We talk about remarkable, and we try to be more remarkable in many ways. Do you not want to hear this part? Okay, you will be. Okay, so very quickly, Dan and I were sitting on a couch, and we were not making out. We were talking about names. We were like, okay, what are the 15 or 50 names that we can call this thing? And all of these titles came out. You know, there was like Air, Wind, Sun, Pain, which I thought was a good one. Low Altitude was the working title. You know, Peace Jumping Extreme was a really shitty name. On Silk and Wings, I'm sorry, Dan, it's like a commercial for Maxi Pads. Dan and I argue over who came up with this. He's wrong. I think I put down like the letter A 6 times as a joke. Leo walks in and we start meeting, and he wouldn't let me launch the game until I changed the name to Aaaaa! We spend the next 2 hours trying to figure out how to pronounce it. How many A's? You know, is it like Aaaaa? Or, you know, it was gonna, you know, it was that sounded like, again, our orgasm simulator. Eventually we settled on 25 letter A's, all getting bigger. All right. It is an algorithm. And 3 exclamation marks, that's right. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to hit up anybody pretty much who works, who goes to WPI, I guess. Or me, or Leo, or the lovely Dan Brainerd here. Thank you very much.